Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So, my name is Amalola Alfred. I am a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional and also a Senior Power Platform Developer here in Nigeria. You would agree with me that Dynamics 365 is an important and valuable skill for you to have in 2023. And we've been looking at amazing series in Dynamics 365 customer service for the past 4 weeks. This is our fourth week. And today we'll be looking at other things. And I'm not here alone today. I am here with my colleague, Sophia. Hi, Sophia. How are you doing today?
Hi, Amolola. I'm doing very well. Thank you for introducing me. So, my name is Sophia Hazwe. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. I'm also a technology consultant as well. So, I'll be anchoring the training alongside with Omolola. And just to touch on the points that we're going to be treating today, first of all, we're going to be talking about knowledge articles. We'll also be taking queues and routing rules as well. And we'll also be talking about automatic record creation for today.
All right, thank you so much, Sophia. So these are the four things that we'll be looking at today, and would also so after the whole session that we have for today, would also be looking at uh, a summary of everything that we have taught on from the first week down to today, which is the fourth week. And the person that will be taking us is still the same person that has been taking us for the past weeks, which is Ayodeji Ologun. Hi, Ayodeji. How are you doing today?
Hi, hi, Omolola, Sophia. Thank you for having me on once again today. So happy. Glad to join you guys once again and continuing our training. And we look forward to having fun and as usual today and learning a great deal about Dynamics 365 customer service.
Yes, so thank you so much, Adeji. So I and Sophia are just going to, we're still here, but would be somewhere and would allow you to just go ahead and train us. All right, so over to you,
All right.
Adeji.
So we'll be continuing. Yeah. All right. So we'll be continuing where we stopped last week. So I will be sharing my screen and train of the presentation. So we last Sylvia said we have a couple of things we need to cover, which we have not been able to get to. So we've been able to discuss activities, cases, holiday schedules, customer service schedule, SLA KPI entitlement. So we are going to cover the part in marked in blue, as you can see on the screen. So we'll be starting from knowledge articles, what they are, and how we can use them to improve the experience of the customer and get their issues resolved quickly. So knowledge articles are a repository of information that will help your customer representatives to resolve cases, incidents. And the way Dynamics 365 handles them makes them very much accessible at the fingertips of your agent, even while they are on the case record. They don't need to leave. They can just, search for articles in that, read it, and even have the capability of sending such articles to the customer. So we'll be going ahead now to see what a typical article looks like and how to create one on Dynamics 365. So let's get into it. So I will be going to Dynamics 365 here. So we have customer service hub, which we have been working with, and I'm sure everyone is at least familiar with how to navigate on the app. So we will be going to knowledge articles. So clicking on this, we should see we have some articles already created on the system, and you can have your articles in draft, status, or in publish. Those are the two extremes. So when you start creating an article, it should be in draft. Then you can put it up for a review or for an existing article that maybe add a revision, you can put it up for a status of needs review. And once all this is done, you have to publish it and you have it in a state of publish. So we can see on the screen, we have these articles, four of them. And then we have one in draft, which means it's the most recent one we've created. And we are yet to conclude that. And we have the other ones published, which are already in use. So we will be creating a new one. And as you can see from the top, you have the new button and you have a new form template. So if you've created a template knowledge base article, you can then use that to create a new one. But we will be doing a new one right now. So when you click on it, it's going to present you with the form that you will use for the knowledge article creation. So we just need to wait for it to load. So it's still loading. Network seems to be a bit slow. Okay, it's coming up. Yeah, so the form is up now and we can start populating this. So let's give it a name, dynamic 365 UG text. So let's give it that name. And from all things we've been discussing, if you see a field that has a red asterisk next to it, it means it is compulsory. You definitely need to fill in that field. And if you have a field with a blue cross um, next to it, it means it is recommended you populate that field. It's not compulsory. If you don't populate it, it will save, but it's recommended you follow the guideline of the system to get even better results with the record. So for this, we will be providing keywords. Now, keywords are those things that when you search for an article, the system will use to include your article in the list of results that will be presented for that particular search. So here we can, for example, say test or D365. Um, you can say CRM, you can put many keywords there separated by comma, and then you can provide an apt description of what this article is. So for our own case here, this is for training. So giving that description to this article, and there's a new section here. So what this one hopes to achieve is if you have created your article without creating a keyword, this particular section you can click on it to say view, and it will give you a new view where it will suggest to you the keywords you can use, and then you can employ that because it would have gone through your article, try to get out the important keywords there and populate for you without you having to do much regarding it. So let's just continue creating our article. So the designer is where you now put in the main information you want to pass. So an article, like we said, helps the customer service representative to resolve issues. So here you will provide a summary of the issue you're trying to solve. I'm giving an ideal, content here. So you provide the scenario, you provide the symptoms, and then a guideline, perhaps the steps which the agent can take to resolve the issue. So let's say here, for instance, the problem is unable to access the training website. Sorry, I spelled training. So if that is the problem, we can come to the next line and say perhaps symptom. Invalid sign in. Then we can provide solution apps. So we can have it um, like so. So before I continue further, if you look at this editor, it's a rich text editor. You can see things like apply bold, italics, underline, etc. here. So you can utilize all of these to actually make your article look beautiful. You can include images there. It allows that. So we can see here, we can add an image. So there are a lot of things you can add. You can add a link. You can format it to look more like a proper Word document that will be willing to work with. So let's just do a simple one. Let me just insert bullet point here, and so that we can just quickly have an article. So let's say we have that then. So password. Enter your two-factor authentication code. Okay. So let's say this is the article we have here. So let's do a bit of formatting of this text. So we can increase, let's increase the font size across the board. So let's say we're giving it a font size of 14. Yeah, we can make this part bold just to differentiate it. I'm sure you guys have an idea of creating very beautiful um, files, so you can model these to even be much more beautiful. So let's say we've edited it. It's now up to our taste what we want, so we can then create this article by saying save. So at this point, what we have done is to actually create the article. So it is saved, but we have not published it yet. So if you have not published it, it will not be available for use, especially if you're trying to use it on an external portal. At this point, it's not going to be available for use. You might be able to search for it by changing the status, but it is of general practice that your user knows if an article is ready for use. Because if it is under review, or maybe you're still working on it and you have to do something, you don't need to publish it. So once someone says it is not published, they know the information there might not just help them in achieving what they want. So like we said earlier, you can see this particular option is now available. You can click on it to suggest keywords for you. But let's continue. So let me quickly explain the template, the design part. So aside for you writing it in plain text, you can have an HTML code. Perhaps you've developed a page where you have the instruction. You can just copy that and put in here, and it is going to make sure it is modeled into a very good looking document that mirrors that particular portal you have copied the solution of. So you can have that here. Then the preview shows you what is going to look like on different screen types. So for instance, on a desktop, it's going to look like this. On a tablet, looks like this. Sorry, on a tablet that is in portrait, looks like that. For landscape, it will look like this. Then you have your mobile phone in landscape and in portrait, and then landscape. So it's going to show you what this will look like when it is being viewed on those devices. So we have that covered. So let's go to the summary part of this and see what we have there. So if you look at this page, you'll notice it is not an internal document. It is telling you no for internal. So what this means is this article is currently created as an external article. So once it's published, it means if you have a portal, your customers can search for this article if that is something you have provided them with the ability to do. So they can search for this article and find it. So it's not restricted to internal staff only, internal agents only. The customer can see them on the portal. Then you have the status reason, which means the current level at which this article is. So it's currently in proposed state. We've not published it. So then we have the owner. I am the owner because I created it, and the article number. Then you have the primary author. So you can always change the primary author. So what this is actually pointing you to is who is going to be responsible for taking care of this article or updating it, maybe publishing it, adding more to it. You can determine who does that by just making them the primary author. Yeah. Then the language. Since we've created this article and we didn't change language, it has stuck with the default language the environment is created with, which is English United States. Then you have the major and minor version. So you can have an article that has a minor version created. And I can quickly show you how to create those. So you have buttons up here where you have create major version. If you click on that, it's going to create a major version if that article is a minor version. Then since this is a major version, you can uh, create a minor version from it. And once you do that, it's going to create a new one with this exact same thing. And the difference will be the major version will be one and the minor version will be one instead of 1, 0. So we're not going to dwell much on that. Then you have more information created on or that will tell you when this article was created and last modified. So that about it. So you can also associate a particular subject, which is more like a topic you fall under here. So if we click on that, it should give. We've seen this before while we're creating cases. So you can select that or a subclass under it, as I meant to do here. So I'm selecting CE, and I can save. So I want us to observe something. You can see I can still save because once you publish an article, as we'll be doing soon, you will notice you can't just save this way anymore. But let's see. Uh, so let's have it finish saving. So you can also have your articles sent up or review. So if you have someone that reviews articles, you can make them temporarily the primary author. Then you mark complete. So you are marking it for a review as yeah, you are setting this action that this article needs review. So you can then go to the next stage. So it should take it and apply this and have it sent to the primary author so that person can review it. And if they are pleased with it, they will select approved. If there is any thing they want to improve upon, they will put in reject. So let's do reject. And once you do reject, it should ask you to provide you know reason for the rejection, as we can see here. So you provide a reason for rejection, then give it back to who the author that created it or is in charge of this, and then they can make amendment and send back to you. So that is how you do reject. So if I were to come here and do approve, then it should ask me to approve this. If I'm sure I want to approve, it will ask you a question. Then once you click that, the article should be updated to approved. So let me just refresh this guy. Okay, so we can see the status reason is now approved. And we can also see here that it has been approved. So you can see here it has been approved. Then you can go ahead to publish it. So you can either publish from the bar up here. If you click on that, you see publish. Yeah, this. Or you can use the business process flow to move it into the publish state. So either one works. So it's going to ask you a few questions. So when do you want to publish this? So if you say in the future, it's going to ask you to provide a date when it should be published. So let's do that so we see. So it's going to give us extra field. So it's saying publish on. So it's going to wait till that time, then publish the article. Then the status will be changed to scheduled. But if you say now, is going to publish this article now, and then you can provide an expiration date. If it's an article that has a time limit, perhaps it is a promo, so you can just put in a date when it expires, and maybe they can't find it anymore to send to customers. So that is something you can do, or you can just go ahead and publish it without having to set any of those things at all, which means they don't apply to this. So we've published this article and the status has duly changed to publish. So we are good to go with this. And to now go back on one thing that we talked about is that this article is currently external article, because you can see it marked here with no. You're saying, is it internal? No, which means it's an external article. So to change this, if this article is not meant to be searchable on your customer's end, where you have your customer go to your portal and search, you can simply come here and mark internal. So we have mark internal. So if I should click this article is going to be updated and the internal will be set to yes. So it's going to make this article not to be available on the external portal. And it's going to ask you more questions saying all versions and translations. So you can have translations for your created article. So if you have several languages on your instance, maybe you're based in several countries where they speak different languages and not English. So if you want to do something to a particular article and you want the same action to be carried on to it, translations, set all versions and translations. Since we know there's no translation for this guy, you can just say submit, and it will change the availability of this article from external to internal. So you can see now it has been marked as internal. So if we go back here, the mark internal has now changed to mark external. So this is how you can change the availability of the article on your customer portal. So that is all about creating article basically. So let's see how this article now applies to our case, which is the core part of the discussion we've been having, customer service. So let's see how we can use this article. So we'll be using existing cases, and then we'll see how this article factors in how it can help your agents to solve their issues faster. Okay. Very sluggish network today. Okay, so let's pick one of these. So let's pick this request test. So pick this case text. So for instance, if I'm the engineer working on this, I've read customer issue, and do not mind the name at this point, since we just created it as text. The name would have duly reflected the issue the customer is facing, perhaps unable to use Gmail, can't use your solution, something like that. So it would rightly reflect the issue that is experienced there. So now this is an out of the box form, and as it is, we can easily identify where we need to go to view the articles that might relate to the issue. So on this pen here, we currently have recent cases, which is denoted by this icon. You can see it's the same icon as the cases generally on Dynamics, and we have knowledge article icon here. So if you click on this, what it's going to do is it's going to take the subject of the article of the case and search the list of articles and see which one fits into that category that might be able to solve it. So we have our articles here. So it's giving me one now. Remember, I just published one the other time. So the system might not have, done what is called indexing to be able to find it right away, but definitely it's going to show up. So this is suggesting this article might be useful to me. So there are 3 actions you can take on this guy. You can see the first one is saying link to case. So you can link an article to this case. And if you have linked it before, you will see it's a linked to a case here. What you can then do by clicking is to unlink it from this case if you have linked it in error. So you can unlink this, and it's going to remove it as being linked to the case. You can open it. If I clicked it, it's going to open a tab, and then show me the full body of the article. So we'll come back to that once it's done. And then the third thing you can do is to send it to the customer. So if I click this now, it's going to take me to email and then try and include the body of the article as part of the email. So now I've clicked it, we'll wait for that to load. So this is the tab we clicked earlier to load our article. Not sure why it's blank. It should display as perhaps it's marked as internal. Let me see. We'll get back to that and see why it's not displayed. So this is the email page. So as you can observe from here, it has taken the title of the article and used that as the subject of the email. And this is the body of the article. So it's going to do that. And then you can just edit it if you want and send to the customer so that they can go through that step and solve the issue from their end. So I will be canceling that. So let's go back here. Okay, so we can see it has loaded the article. Not sure what happened earlier. So this is where you can see the full body of the article. To read it, you can do that. So I'll close that tab. So we are back here. So one other thing we need to check is to see what the article is marked as. As we can see, it's marked as external and then it is published. This is because you can change your filter to include a broader search. So for instance, if I click on that funnel icon there, I can change the status. As you can see, you can look for approved articles that have not been published or scheduled ones. But by default, it's not going to include this, but we can include that by just checking them. So right away, it's adjusting. So that's one. We can change the visibility to include both internal and external. So we're only looking for external ones earlier. So now that we've said, okay, include both or the other, we can see. So this is the article we just created now, and we can see it here also included. So we can look at it, we can work with it, and you can see it's marked as internal, which was why it was not displayed before. So we can change the modified on when it was last modified. Those are the only articles I want to see. We can pick that here, and then we can change language or select this. Since we have only one language provision with the system, so if I want to select that, it's going to give me more articles that are created with other languages here. So that is how you work with knowledge article in relation to case. Then knowledge article itself has its own search where you don't need to have a case record. You can just go there and search, through articles. If perhaps you're not getting something you want, so you can come here and type and should get the same type of result, and then you can apply the filter as we have seen as well. The same applies here. So that is all about articles here. So we'll be moving on to discussing queues. So what are queues? Give me a moment. So we'll be moving on to discuss queues. Okay, so queues in Dynamics 365 are used to organize records. There are a variety of records you can enable to be added to queue. So you are using them to organize records that you want to be processed at some point. So it's more like a holding place for your items that you believe have certain things in common. Perhaps they are to be worked on by the same team or by a special set of users. You can put those records in a particular container, and that is the essence of your queue. So it's a place where you organize and categorize items that you want to be processed. So that is what a queue is. So we'll go into the system and see what how to create a queue, the type of queues, and how to work with items on the queue. So we're back on Dynamics 365. Now, for a support agent, they can easily come to the service section of the app and click on queues. And what this will give them right away is items that they are eligible to work on. So this will give them items that they are eligible to work on or the ones they are working on. But they can change this to fit the broader scope of things that they would like to see. So for instance, you can say all selected cases in the queue. And what queue are we talking about? The queues I'm a member of. So right now I don't have anything, any case in the queue. So you can change the queue. So there's a queue called incoming in the queue. You can change the queue and go there. So this is for the agent so that they can see items they need to work, they can work with, then pick to work on those items. But for you as an administrator, you need to configure the queue to hold those items that you want to organize or want to be processed at a particular time. So what you do is you navigate the service management of the app, you change area. This place is called you change your change area. So you change the area of the app to service management. So once you're on that, you see queues. So when you click on this, you see a list of queues. A list of queues. Right now, I can see um, 92 of them. So you can see 1 to 50. So there's a next page that I can click to go to uh, the others. So let's see how to create a queue, and then we'll provide more explanation on that. So to create a queue, you just do new like you do, most other records that you've been creating. So you click on new, and then it's going to give you a form to create a queue. So you give your queue an appropriate name. So I'm saying D365 UGQ. Now there are two types of queues that you can select from. The first one is a public queue. And what the public queue means is that for everyone in your organization that has an appropriate security role or privilege, let's say, will be able to see the items on this queue, no matter who they are, since they have an appropriate role, privilege, they will be able to see items on the queue. Then if you pick a private queue, it means the queue is only available to a certain group of users. It's only available to a certain group of users. So we will be creating a private queue in this instance. So if I pick a private queue, then I can continue. So you can provide an email for that queue. So for items that would be sent maybe by your customer, for instance, an email. If okay, let's say your organization has a support email, and your customer send messages, emails to that email address. So once it hits that email address, you would have created it in Dynamics to automatically take them to this queue. So to do that, you just provide the email address as the incoming email of the queue. So once those messages are created in Dynamics, it moves them to this queue automatically. So that is how you use that. So it is going to help you in organizing those things, because you might need to use it later on, and I'll show you why this is useful later on. But as you can see, it is not an important field. You might just leave it as is without putting anything there. So you provide an appropriate description for the queue. Also not a compulsory field, but you can provide that. Now there is an email setting here. So if you have provided an email here, then definitely you might need to come here and put an appropriate setting. So now the first setting we have is convert incoming emails to activity. So if you want it to do that, then you select the appropriate one. So the first one is all email messages. So all email messages coming into this queue will be converted to an activity, or you want the emails that are in response to them, 365 emails only, you can select that. Then you have other categories there, you can read through them. Or you can say none of the emails should be converted into an activity. So an activity in Dynamics include an email as well. So you could have maybe you want it to be converted to a task or something, you could have that marked somehow. So this is saying convert emails to activity. So you can pick an appropriate settings depending on what you have. So I could have left it as all incoming emails. to to this guy, and it will make no effect because I've not provided an incoming email address here. So we can leave it as is. So you can provide an email signature if that is what you want, so that when you're sending emails out with the email queue, you have a signature to that effect. So I can save this as is. And once we do that, it's going to give me more options that I can work with regarding this queue, more things that I can do regarding this queue. So I'm saving this record now. It's going to take a little while. Okay, so we have that created. So let's give it a little more time. Okay, so the first part here we can see queue items. It says what this means is that if there are any items that belong to this queue, they will be created as queue items for the queue. So this will point you to the records for uh, that belongs to this queue, and you see them listed here. So we'll be seeing that soon. Then you have members of the queue. So you can add other people. Like I said, the reason why you have this is because you decided to make this queue a private queue. So you are creating more like club members, the MC 365 UG queue club members. So you can add members here, you can remove members as you like. And this will include users that you believe should have access to whatever this queue is holding, because it is not going to be available to everyone in the organization, since it's a private queue. So that's what we have here. Then the last part is we have record creation and update rules, which we'll come back to much later, and as we are going to discuss in a bit. So this is what we currently have here. And at this point, there is no queue items here. And you can confirm that by, if you go out of this queue to the list of queues. So let's look for it. So this is it here. Okay, this queue is not, I just want to give you an heads up because it will come in handy much later. So let me add. Uh, okay, queue items. So I'm applying a quick edit on this view I'm currently on, so I can show us something regarding queues. So for the queue Dynamics 365 UG, where is it? Going to the next page. Okay, so for this queue now, we can see the queue items is saying 0. And this is, like I said, important. So let me just duplicate this and show us something, so that if anybody runs into an issue with this, we know how to solve it. So let's load a new page. So we'll be going back to our case that we've been using for tests, and show you what you can do with REST queues on cases and other records. So I'm going back to change area services and going back to cases. So we'll be working with test case. Let's open that up. So for a case that you have received and you believe is on the wrong queue, or perhaps it's not on any queue at all, you can manually add it to a queue. And this is how you do that. So you go on the record, and once it's done loading, you will see at the top here on the command bar the option to add it to a queue. So let's just wait for this to finish loading. Yeah, so there it is. You can see add to queue. So if I click on this, it's going to ask me which queue do you want to add this guy to. So it's going to give us a dialog, and then we can search for the queue. So it's D365. Yeah, so that's the queue. Add it to this queue. So it's adding it to the queue, and it should be a queue item when we go back to that queue. So let me open this guy and show us what we have there. So we should see it on this list. Okay, so we can already see the case now is now a queue item on this list, and I'm able to see it. But watch what happens if I decide to remove myself as a member. So let me just remove this guy. Remove. Okay, clicked it for a while there. So I've removed myself as a member of this queue. So we can see it's saying no data available for queue items. Why is this? So you might have experienced an issue like this where people are saying there are no cases on our queues, something like that. The issue might be that they are not a queue member. So and this applies to even the owner of the queue. As you can see, I'm the current owner of this queue, but because I'm not a
Hello, Ayadeji. I cannot hear you. Hi, Sophia.
Hi, Omolola.
How you doing? Okay, so am I able to hear Ayadeji? I
No,
cannot hear him. Since his
I can't
network
hear
is
him
a bit,
anymore. Yeah,
yeah. So
I
since
think it's a network too.
mm-hmm. Yes. So let's just give him a little bit of time to join us back. Okay. In the meantime, while we wait for Ayadeji, let's do one thing. If you have questions, just go ahead and put out your questions. Let's see. Do we have questions? Okay, so Dare Blessing says, can we copy our article from MS Word and paste it in the designer? We have another question. Okay, so Basi David already answered you, Dare Blessing. He says, yes, you can. All right, thank you so much, Basi. If you have other questions, please go ahead and drop questions. Okay. All right, so Ayadeji will be joining us soon. Okay. Hi, Ayadeji.
sorry network trouble there, but let's
Yeah,
share.
understandable.
So I'm sharing my screen.
So while you were gone, Ayedeji, we have some questions. Yes, even though it has
Okay,
been
we can take.
answered in it, yeah, I would just like you to, go through just one. So Larry Blessing says, can we copy our articles from Microsoft Word and paste it in the designer?
Yes,
More
absolutely. You can do that.
okay. So
You can copy
that
from MS Word and paste in the designer.
mhm. All right. So
And you can
Blessing,
also
you
paste
have
copy from
your
website and paste in the HTML template, and it's going to organize it um, in a manner that is much more presentable. You can do this, yeah.
okay. Yes. Thank you so much.
So we are back now. So I'm not, yeah. I don't know how far back the network might have, disconnected. I just noticed it wasn't working. So I'm not sure, but let me just continue. Let me go back a bit and continue. So earlier I showed us that the case record we've been working with, um, this case has been added to a queue, to the queue we created earlier, and I should be able to see it on that queue. So I'm saying there might be a scenario where you now go to that queue and you don't see that record there. And at that point, what is happening is that you are not a member of that queue. So you are not a member of that queue, so you will not be able to see it. Now I can do queue item details here, and I should see the queue, the the current record I'm on belongs to. So it's going to give me information about the queue and the queue item itself. So I'm checking the details, and you can see it belongs to Dynamics 365 UGQ. But if I go there now, I can't see any queue items. It is blank. So one thing I can do is if I close this and I want to be sure that, yeah, there is a record on this queue because I can't see any record at all. So if I want to be sure, if I close this record, hold on, let me go to the list of queues and show us that, yeah, you this is a troubleshooting step. So what you do is, if it doesn't contain this column already, so just add the column queue items, queue items, do and apply. So it's going to reload the view, include that column you have added there, which is should be a third column here. Yeah, these queue items. Then you can go to that queue, that I'm 365 UG, and verify the number of records there. Even though you can't see those records, records could be there. So as you can see on this line, we have the queue items to be 1. So if you're experiencing this and users are saying, oh, we can't see queue items, we don't know what items are on our queue, and you yourself also as the person who created that queue, or sorry, who owns the queue currently, you can't see the records. What this simply means is you and the users complaining do not belong to that queue. You are not members on that queue. So what you need to do is to add yourself and those other people as members. So what I'll do now is I'll say add existing user. So you do add existing user. So you look for the user. So I have myself. should display. So there, click on that. Let me add one more user, Skywalker. So you can then do add. So the moment you do this, these two users will be able to see any record that belongs to this queue. Remember, this is only applicable to queues that you have created as private. For a public queue, you don't need to do this. Everyone is going to see whatever those queue have in them. So you don't need to do this for public queues. So I've added them as user. It's still working in the background to add them. Yeah. So once they've been added, you see them in the list. And if I refresh these queue items, I should be able to see that case because now I'm a member of the queue. So let's just wait for it so we can see that it works. So we can see the queue, the record is here now, and I can see it because I'm rightly a member of that queue. So that is how you can create queues. You can either create them as public or private. The public is available to everyone to see the queue items, and even this grid, you might not see this grid. It's a public queue. Will check one out. But if it's a private queue, you definitely need to be a member of that queue to see the items it contains. Now, when you're on a queue and you want to pick an item to work with, so what you do is you select and then click more, then you can do a pick. So it says you can pick the record and then you can work on it, do whatever you need to do with it. So once you're done, or perhaps you need to rid of yourself from that, you can do a release. So you have pick, release. You also have route. We've not covered routing, but we can also route from here. And then you can remove the item from the queue. You can also remove the item from the queue. That one that has access to this queue will be able to perform this action, but these are actions that can be carried out and would solely rely on the permission you have been given by your administrator to be able to do this thing. But these are common actions you can, perform on this queue. So that is queue for us. So let's go back to check a public view, a public queue right now. We have one that was created already, that's already on the system. Let's check that one out. So it's the same way you're creating a private queue that the public queue, but you only set the queue type to public. So let's see. So the last queue here, sure, it's public, and you can see it has 87 queue items on it. So let's open it up. And without being a member of the queue or anything, because you can't even be a member of a public queue, like I said, it's public, you will see all of the items on the public queue. And then you can see we have the same type of setting, only that the type of queue here is public. So it's loading up. And then we'll see the queue items. So we can see the queue items here. And you can see the grid for members is not displayed here because this is a public queue. The moment I change it to a private queue, it's going to give me a grid to add uh, members before I can then see any of these. So that's the difference between a public and private queue. So we're moving on now to routing. So to get to routing or to configure routing, this is an administrative task. So your administrator would do this and configure the system to be able to route. So to do that, you go to the customer service hub app, you change the area to service management as we have here, and then you come to routing rule sets. There are other type of routing. This is a much more advanced type of routing that is introduced mainly through omnichannel. So if you have omnichannel deployed, this will give you a much richer experience than just a simple routing rule set. So but we will talk about routing rule set here because that is the primary way of routing, is the primordial one if you want, the oldest and the pioneering type of routing that you can do on Dynamics 365. So if you go to an earlier version of Dynamics 365 on premise, you will only find this kind of routing. You won't find the unified routing there. So let's work now. So we can see at this moment we don't have any routing rule set. We only have an empty page. But before we do that, what exactly is routing itself? So routing rules, as they are called, is applied to automatically route items. Let me not say cases. If you have enabled other items uh, to be routable, you can route them. So you route them to a specific queue or user. So you can route them to three different things. You can route them to a queue. We've discussed queue. You can route them to a user, which is a person, or a team, which is a group of users. The queue also is a group of users, but it's quite different from a team. So you can route to any of those three. But for user and team, they are often grouped into one, which means you can then pick if the type is a user or if the type is a team or a single user. So you are taking records and you're saying, oh, this is the person that is going to be responsible for it. Or once you have a case created that meets this criteria, just send it to this queue. So that is what you want to do. You are doing with routing rule sets. So let's go back to Dynamics and see this in action. So we are back on Dynamics. Now to create a routing rule set, like you said, you change area, go to service management, then come to routing rule set. You can edit an existing one if you have that, or create a new one. And the caveat is you can only have one active routing rule set. You can't have more than one, but you can have different items under the routing rule set. Remember, we had the same thing with SLAs. But for SLA, you can have multiple active SLAs, but you can only have one default one. And for an SLA, you can have items. So the same type of thing is going on here. So you have one routing rule set, and then you have items under it. So let's start. Let's name it Dynamics 365 UG routing, and then we provide a description in. So that's basic, and then we can save this guy. So saving this. So it's saved. And then it's going to load the grid up for us to add the item. Notice we have not done anything other than giving it a name, giving it description. We have not done anything. So now, when you save it, you're going to wait for it, and it's going to now give you a grid where you can now add items. So rule items, they are called. So you click on new rule item, and it's going to give you a dialog page where you can then specify the conditions for the items that you want to route. So let's wait for this to conclude its loading cycle, and then we can configure it. So it's done loading. So we'll give it a name. Let's say all web cases. So it depends on what you actually want to do. So you give it an appropriate name, and then you provide a description, route or route cases from customer portal. So let's say we want all our customer portal cases to be routed into a particular queue, or perhaps a user. We can use this to do that. So you must have created something to assist you in knowing what case has been created from the portal. So, and in this case, there's a field called origin by default on case entity. So I can say origin. Now, this is the criteria we are entering. What criteria are we considering when we want to apply this rule? So I would say when the origin of the case is web, then it should carry out an action. And the action down below is to route it, because that's what we are doing. We want to route it. So who or where should you route it to? Is it a user or a team or a queue? So you can see it's either a queue or user or team. So one of them will be where the case should be routed to. So let's say queue. Let's start with queue and saying we should route it to a queue. So it's going to ask you now, what queue are we routing it to? And then I would say, so let's pick that queue. Then I'm 365 UG, queue we created earlier, and pick that. So we can do a save and close. So for good measure, we'll be creating one more rule. Let's say that will involve phone cases. So if your customer phones in, lays their complaint and you created a record on their behalf, yeah, so route it to a particular, um, person. So this time around, we'll say a person. You should route it to a particular person. So let's do that now. So route, sorry, all phone cases. Sorry. All phone cases. So we say route. So route phoned in cases. So cases that are phoned in should be routed by this guy. So we'll go back to the same field, because that is capable of identifying where the case came from. So it's still origin, which means origin of the case. Origin, yes, equals phone. So we want to route all phone cases to a particular person. So let's pick a user or team. Then so in this lookup view, you can search for a team. If you have created a team, you can search for that team and say apply assign to this team. And like I said, the team is a group of people. So you have people that you have assigned to a team. Then it means once a case is routed to their team, then they are responsible for that. So that's what that means. Then or you can just route it to a single person. So in this case, I'll be doing Skywalker, which is a user on the system. Uh, it should filter down. Yeah. So it's filtered down. Network seems to be slow. Not sure why. So you save it, and then we have two rule items on this routing rule set. So I've saved and closed this guy. So what you then need to do is to activate it. So I can activate it. Remember, you can't have more than one active routing rule set. You can only have one. But what you do is you add as much rule item as you want under that routing rule set. And that's why it's called a set, because you have various items underneath. So I will go ahead and activate this guy. So we can see the two items there. One is routing to a queue and the other one is routing to a user or team, which is our user Skywalker. So we'll be picking examples from our existing cases and apply this routing rule set. So let's close this. Network is somehow slow today. So this case, origin is not specified. So if I specify web for it, then route and say save and route, it is going to work. Or you can say apply routing rule set. Now, the reason why this wouldn't really matter is because we've already added it to, a queue that we are using. So we already added it to Dynamics 365 UG queue. So we won't see any difference on this guy. So let's go to another record and see how to apply that. Come on, come on, come on. Okay, so it's done routing it. So let's go to the list of queues and pick certain cases and then apply routing to them. I think network is a bit slow today. So let's pick the first one. I'm sure it doesn't belong to any queue because we've not added it to a queue. And to be sure of that, we would check. So let's check. Wait for it to load and then check if it belongs to any queue. And how do you do that is you go on the ribbon at the top and you say queues. If it belongs to a queue, it will rightly show you a detail. If it doesn't, it will say it does not belong to any queue. So let's wait for it. I'm not sure why the network is so slow today. It's really annoying. Okay, so we are here. So if I click on queue item details, I expect it to show me the details of the queue this guy belongs. If it's not belonging to any queue, you see as shown here, this record is not added to any queue. So remember, so we want to apply our routing rule set. Remember, we're working around this origin field. So the first one we said, if it belongs to web, it should route it to Dynamics 365 UG. So if I say save and route, I expect this case to be added to Dynamics 365 UG queue. So let's go back. While that is saving, let's go back and load the queues we have. Let's see, is this still? So it's saying route this guy. I'll say yes. So it has finished saving and then it's trying to route it. So I'll say yes. So let's see. B365 UG. So it should search and give me that queue. Here we are. So let's open up this guy. So I'm a member of this queue. I should see all items that belong on this queue. So the other way to confirm belongs to the queue is to go to the case itself. So slow today. Still loading both windows. So we just got to be patient. This is the one we just routed. Not sure why it exited, but let's see. Okay, so this is on. Uh, okay, it's still loading. Okay, so it's here. So to see if it belongs to any queue, like I said, do queue item details, and that should give you the queue it belongs to. Then we can come to the queue as well and check what um, items we have on this queue. So I will expect to have find two items on this queue. The first one we added to the queue, and this one that we have saved and routed to this queue automatically by the system itself, which means it will pick our routing rule and apply that. So we can see there are two of them here now. So the one we just used, save and route, has come here as expected because we have fulfilled the criteria for that, which is web. So it's here. Not sure why this isn't showing, but okay, it's showing now. Okay, so we can see it on this queue. Save and close that. So let's go pick another case and then do, you know, something else. So let's meet the other criteria set, which is for phone in cases, we should route to a user. So let's pick the second one. So since this one will not be going to any queue, you need to watch out for is the user. So in this case, this record is belonging to me. Um, yeah, it belongs to me. It's currently on web, but we have not applied a routing rule set because the routing rule set that is created is only going to be applied, proactively by the system when a new record is created. For records that are already on the system, you will have to go and apply the routing rule to them. Then it's going to evaluate them because the system would assume you don't want those touched for now. But if you go and filter them on a view, you can apply that routing rule set and it's going to affect them. So let's change this guy to phone and save. You can see it belongs to me. That's my name there. So let's use the apply routing rule method instead of save and route this time around. We used that earlier. So let's do apply routing rule so we can see how both works. So I've clicked apply routing rule. It's taking time. Yeah. So it's saying, do you want to route this case based on the active routing rule set? And I'll say yes. So once you do that, it's going to take the active rule and apply. And in this case, you should assign it to Skywalker, which means the case owner should become Skywalker. So it's loading the record. Still showing my name there. Let's refresh. That's weird because I would expect this guy to change. Should assign it. Yeah, so it's saying it's assigned to this guy here. So let me refresh. It took a while to apply that rule then, because on the timeline it does say, yeah, I've assigned it to Skywalker. So yeah, so it's assigned to Skywalker. It was just taking time. So it has assigned it to Skywalker. So we could either use save and route, and it's going to pick the active routing rule after you made your changes, or you can do apply routing rule if you have no changes made. Just use apply routing rule. It's going to ask you that it's going to use the active routing rule to route the request. So that is how you use routing to route cases. So instead of you manually coming to the system to do this, for any new request that has been created, the system will evaluate them based on the routing rule set. So if the criteria you have specified is a match, is a hit on that record, it's going to carry out the action you have specified. So you don't need to necessarily go to, say, oh, a case has come in. Where is it coming from? Oh, okay, it has to go to this. So you can use routing rule set to automate that process, and it works fine. So the last thing we'll be talking about is our ARC rule. So to get to ARC rule, you do change management, you change area rather to service management, and then you have your automatic record creation rule. So, so what are ARC rules? So they are rules that you apply to different type of activities to create Dynamics 365 records. So let me paint a scenario. So you have a scenario where your customers keep sending, like I said, they send email to your a particular support email address you have to to take customer requests. Maybe you don't have a portal. So based on the criteria you have set for the automatic record creation, it's going to take that email, check for the condition you have set, and then create a record. So for instance, if it is support you are targeting, so it's going to look at the incoming emails from the customer and create a case record on behalf. So then that case record goes through whatever condition or automation you have done, maybe routing it to someone, applying SLA, checking for what do you call it now, entitlement and all that. So you could have automated those other ones, and then it's going to create. So automatic record creation just helps you create a record once a criteria is met. So in this case, we'll be looking at how to use ARC to create cases. So let me just show you what ARC is. Might not be able to actually demo this because I was trying to activate an email because we have this is a demo environment. We don't really have luxury of creating much emails anymore on it. But let me just try and see what we can do with that. So let's go back to CRM. So yeah, we already have one ARC rule here active. Let's open it. Yeah, so it's riding on this queue. So it's riding on this queue so whatever item to that queue, it uses that to and it's an email. It uses that to create a case record based on this criteria. So we'll be creating a new one now. So you can create a new one from here or from the view we're coming from. So naturally, we'll be creating new records from the view. So if I say new from here, it's going to give me a new form. So we can give it a name, say we're using Dynamics 365 UG ARC rule. So it's usually called ARC rule, ARC, which is automatic record creation. We just forget the UR at the end of it, but it's fine. So while you don't have to monitor any queue, you could just monitor emails. So all emails coming in should be converted to a case. Yeah, you could do that. Or you could say specifically coming into a particular queue. So you can specify a queue here. So let's look for Dynamics 365 UG queue. Take that. So we only want it converting email records that come into Dynamics 365 UG queue. So it's going to monitor that. So you can change this to a variety of other type of records, task, sessions, service. So most of these are type of activities on the system. In fact, I'll say all of them as it's brightly denoted here. So there are more activities than to the ones that we have mentioned, but at least we are familiar with emails, phone calls, tasks. What other one? Appointments. We should be familiar with those ones. As the name, suggests, it's very much descriptive of what they stand for. So we are monitoring emails that comes into this queue. So we can save this guy and we'll get more options that we can work with. Okay, so it's saved. Now we can't just go ahead to say every case that comes into the system, just create a record for it. Usually you don't want the system to create new records for responses to your emails. So for instance, the customer sent the first email, oh, I have issue with my phone. You log the system creates a record, a case record for it. So subsequent back and forth on that email should not create cases every time. So you can specify conditions that the system needs to look for to determine which ones should it use in creating a case. So to do that, you go into these conditions to evaluate to take actions. So you click on new, should come. I've clicked on it. It's just terribly slow. It's terribly slow, which is quite unusual. Not sure why it's slow. So it's giving us this dialogue. Let's wait for it to finish loading everything. So I think we can now proceed to finish loading. So you give it condition name. So I'm saying non-parented support emails. The reason I pick this is for emails that have back and forth within CRM, the first one will serve as the parent for the very next one. So when you now continue that, back and forth, then each one will start becoming a parent for the other one, which means the only one that would not have a parent will be the very first email, which should be the one that should create the record, and the other ones will just, rightly line up under it and then become an email thread for this particular case that we are talking about. So that is why I named it non-parented support emails. So you then say the condition to evaluate. So I'm adding this guy. So the reason we should be seeing email fields here. And the reason for that is because we picked email as a primary activity we want to work with on the earlier page. So I would say parent activity ID, which is saying denoting if a record has a parent. So if it has a parent, then it should not create a case. So it should be does not equal, does not contain data. So it should not contain the parent activity ID should not contain data. So if it doesn't contain data, it means it's the first email in its own thread, and then it should create. So you can have other conditions like say the header of the email should not be automatic response, auto response, or should not the subject should not start with RE, which is RE colon, which is a response, obviously, or should not be FWD forward. You can specify a lot of things to ensure that you're only capturing the emails that should genuinely create case, not just any email at all. So can do that. Now we can see what record do we want to create here. So you see we are saying case. So you can as well create other type of records on the system. See attachment, audio file, ads, actual, whatnot. So you have various other type of records that you can create. You can create a booking, you know, a lot of things that you can create here. But usually most people will work with cases and create a case. Yeah, so that's the most popular use for this guy. Then you can have power automate configuration because this rule relies on power automate to do its job. So if you want to do other things like, okay, for cases that fall into this criteria, you want to assign it to someone, or let's say you want some fields that might not be visible on the email that it is extracting data from to, you can't fill those fields by just the email. So you can have Power Automate statically, fill those fields or dynamically pick something from somewhere that you predetermined and do that. That is what it is. So if I say save, let's do save and open Power Automate. So it's going to save the record and it's going to open Power Automate. So you can see the flow. So they are part of those flows that you don't delete. It's a necessary step. If you delete those cards, action, or as it's named, your rule won't work. So there are necessary actions that has been created, but it doesn't mean you can't add your own card. You can definitely add your own card. You can add more to those are already stated action, but you should not delete any of those actions that is appended with do not delete. So it blocked my pop-up. So let's just ensure it doesn't do that again. So say save and open again. Yeah, so it's taking me to Power Automate. It's expected. It also applies to SLA. We talk about SLA. So for SLA, you can perform custom action based on the outcome of the SLA record that you're working with. So for a particular SLA, perhaps the SLA, if the SLA expired, you want it to escalate whoever the record is assigned to, that they did not meet their target. So you can have Power Automate to do that part. So it's a custom action. You go to the flow and then incorporate that. Or once they succeed, maybe you want them. Maybe you have a ranking system. You want it to rank the user, by giving them certain points. All of these things. So there's a custom actions you can perform, and Power Automate is being relied on here to do those things. So we are coming into Power Automate now to see what an OOB flow for ARC looks like. So bear with me. Wrong count. So bear with me. Let me sign in. I hope that is correct. Been a while I've used this account. Let's see. Just hold on. Give me a moment. Let me see. What's this? Yeah, it's I was right first time. Maybe I had a spelling issue. Let me just give me a moment. Let me work this one out. Mandalorian.microsoft.com. Oh, okay. There's a mistake in my spelling. Okay, so we are signed in. Just see if that one has lost connection. Let me try again with a new instance. Oh, okay, it's coming up. Great. So it should load the flow. Sorry. Since this is loading, it should load that flow, and then you can see the various actions on it. So I just want us to have a view of this so you know what is going on with SLA as well. So we can see the name of the flow is ARC, automatic record creation and update rule. Then the name I gave it was non-parented support emails. That was for the condition. And you can see it's saying do not delete or rename. So you can't delete this flow, nor even rename it. Just leave the name as is and don't delete the flow. Because if you do any of this, your arc rule won't work. If you just rename it, your arc rule won't work. Not to mention you deleting it. So you just need to leave it as is. So now we can see the actions there. You can see the first one is saying don't edit or delete. So you can't even edit this first one. You should not even touch it. You can work with this. Say identify, you can work with this, you can do more. You can add your own custom card, no issues there. Then for this step, create a record is saying don't rename this step. And that would go the same way as saying don't even bother, deleting it. Don't rename. You can edit it, you can, incorporate your own stuff in there, but don't rename it. Leave it as is, as well as this. It's saying don't edit or delete this step. You can't edit or delete this. You can add your own card, continue from where they stop. It doesn't matter. But these ones that have been marked with a one warning or the other, you need to adhere to that. Otherwise, if you do anything different, you break your arc rule. So that is what the Power Automate action steps look like for an automatic record creation. So let's assume we are done with this. We can then save and then close. And we should have the, okay, double window opened. So you can have more than one rule here, and it's going to evaluate each one of them. Then move ahead to, do whatever it is you want. So the condition we have added is there now. We've checked out the associated Power Automate flow. Now, step 3 here is saying, do you want to reply to the email? So to the email that is going to be used in creating a case for us as your specified case, do you want a system to create some sort of automatic response to it? If you want, you say yes, otherwise you say no. So if you say yes, it's going to ask you to select an email template. So it means you must have had an email template saying thank you, customer so. You can have your template pull their names dynamically from if they are already a contact on the system. So you must now all those type of automatic response emails you get. Thank you, customer. We acknowledge. We have seen your emails. So that is what this is for. So you can pick a template that is then sent in response to that email that is being used to create this record. So if you don't want to do that, you just say no, and then you continue. You can save. I think at this point it is best to save of the record. So we go to advanced, and then we can see more options there. So the first one says allow email from unknown senders. So there might be senders that are not, contacts already on your system. So their emails cannot be mapped, cannot be resolved to any contact on your system. So if you want to receive emails from them, you let the system know. So you can say yes or no here. So as it is now, if any user sends me an email and the arc rule detects it, and it tries to locate a contact for them or an account, and it can't find any of those things, it's not going to do anything. It's just going to bypass them. Because, yeah, I don't care about you. So that's what this one is. So the second one is required a valid entitlement on the connected case. So for when we're creating entitlement, there is what do you call it now? How you can associate a contact with an entitlement. So that is what this is hinting at. So if the contact coming into the system to send any email, if they don't have a valid entitlement, then the system will not be able to create a case at yes on this guy. If you have said, yeah, it should require entitlement, then it will just ignore and not be able to create request um, case for them. Then the third one is wait for a specific amount of time after the connected case. So after the connected case, now if you want it to wait for a specific amount of time before it does something, you can specify yes. Let's specify yes and see. So it's going to ask you, give me the amount of time that you want. As we and with all things time in the system, you don't have to pick from the list. You can type in your own that probably does not match this. So that is what this guy is hinting at. So it says choose whether an item related to a resolved case should be connected to the case. So it's this one it wants to is associate an item to the case. So and that is what we have there. So it is important when you are creating your article to come here. For most users, this guy will be yes because you don't want to alienate your users. They might not just use one single email to send you things on CRM. So what the system even does in most cases is if you're allowing unresolved sender to send something to you, it might go ahead and create a contact on their behalf. So it's going to accept the email, then create a contact on behalf and associate that to the case. So the good practice is to mostly allow unknown senders to be able to email you. Now let's talk about this third one, activity monitor. So the activity monitor part is where you rule your rule working or not, and why it is possibly rejecting some uh, incoming cases as it is here. So there are some incoming cases that might not meet the criteria. If that is the case, you see logs here. So this will collect logs based on how many times this rule has been triggered, and if it succeeded or not. So you see there that here. So that is what we have with the rule. We won't be able to demonstrate this. Let me see if we have any data on the existing rule we have there. And do not forget to activate your app rule once you have created them. If you don't activate them, they are just as useless as you not having created it at all. So you need to activate your rule. As you can see, this one is in draft. So let's go to this one and see if there is any thing we can learn from it. I'm not sure if it has helped. I'm not sure even if I was one who created or is created by someone else. So there's nothing here, and I think it has to do with the queue because the email on this queue was not receiving emails into the system, and I tried to activate it earlier. So this might contribute to why we are not able to test. Cool. Hold on. Selected records. Yeah. So let's see if it runs because the incoming part is failing. The outgoing is successful. So I don't know. So let's just see if the configuration will work this time. So it's still failing. So we will not be able to actually be able to demonstrate this. So I think that will be the end of our lecture session rather to for the whole of customer service. So we can do a quick recap of what we have touched so far. So the core part of customer service is cases or incidents. And to create an incident, you can have your customers using a portal that you have created, and then it imputes the field there, and it comes into the system. Or you have agents internally creating the system, maybe when they receive a phone call or an email, or use an app rule like this to automate that process. Then you have things like customer service calendar, or holiday schedule, customer service schedule and holiday calendar. So the holiday calendar takes into consideration the holidays you have in a year, such that if you don't offer uh, support on holidays, you can allow the system to know. So the system, you are telling the system, oh, we have an holiday on 25th and 26th of December. So we'll be factoring that into an SLA. So any customer that creates a case around that period, the system calculates and includes the fact that you don't offer support on holidays. So that is what your calendar is for. So it's to be able to allow you to manage the availability of your agent. And the same thing goes for customer service schedule, but the customer service schedule has to do more with your operating hours. What time of the day do you operate? What days of the week do you operate, and if you observe holiday or not. So if you observe holiday, it's going to ask you to pick a calendar, an holiday calendar, which you must have created earlier. So you can include that. So based on this, when you are now creating an SLA, after creating SLA KPI, and you are creating an SLA and you are creating SLA items, it is very much welcome, step to include your schedule. It's going to be called business schedule or business hours, but basically it is asking you to include your customer service schedule there, which you would have configured as well. Then you compose the condition, as well as what it should, how long you should have before actually expiring. When you then denote that the customer service agent has failed or has breached an SLA agreement. So you specify all that you save. Then we have entitlement. So the relationship between entitlement and SLA is that you can only have one default SLA on the system, and this SLA you can have it applied whenever a case is created, so it evaluates. But ideally, if your customers have entitlement, you can use the entitlement to apply the SLA. So whenever an entitlement is selected for a customer record, you can pick a non-default SLA and apply that. So that is going to override the default SLA, which means, yeah, this customer has an entitlement, and that entitlement allows them to be able to have, this SLA, which would mean that you could have specified different timings for the SLA items other than what you have on the default ones. For instance, you might, even though you are not offering support on holidays or weekends, you can have very important customers that you want to be able to work with, or that wants you to work with them because they paid a huge sum. So to do this, you would necessarily need to create a new schedule, which you then attach to the new SLA item that you'll be creating, and that can then be applied through an entitlement. Then an entitlement also, you can make it in such a way that you specify what channels the customer can create their request from, and how many times can they raise a request from such channels. You can also associate specific products and specific contacts with an entitlement. So outside of those, the entitlements would not apply to the request they have raised. So you have that. And then we talked about knowledge articles, which just helps your users to be able to quickly and effectively attend to customer requests. Then you have your queues, which is just a container to organize and group items together. Then routing rule is to just automate a team or user or queue that should um, a particular case or record should be moved to. Then your arc rule just helps you to automate the process of creating records whenever an activity comes into the system. So we would be having our host take over from here as we have come to the end of this session. And let me just say, if we hope to, have you guys on next time, so we can even go into much more in-depth customization of Dynamics 365 customer service. So thank you
Wow.
very much for coming
Thank
in
you.
today.
Thank you so much, AY, for the detailed class. You've gone through everything. You've talked about knowledge articles. You've talked about record creation rules. You've talked about routing rules as well. And you've extensively talked about entitlements as well, too. There's nothing much for us to recap again. I think if any of our viewers have questions to ask, we can take them before Ayodeji leaves us. Now, let me check if there's any questions. Okay, there are no questions for now.
Yes. So thank you so much, Ayadeji, for the, will I say, in-depth and thorough um, yeah, the in-depth and thorough explanation of Dynamics 365 customer service. So we have about four more, or will I say in this case, three more classes left to go. So next week we will be looking at customization and extension of Dynamics 365 customer service, and we'll have another trainer come teach us all of that. So you want to do well to go through everything that Ayodeji has taught us, all right? And also we have an assignment for you. So Ayodeji has prepared for us an assignment, and the assignment is going to be sent to our WhatsApp group, and it's also going to be sent via email to everybody that has registered. So thank you so much for trusting us with your learning journey. And Ayodeji, thank you so much for being with us and for teaching us. All right. So from us
Thank you
at
for having me.
Nigerian Dynamics 365,
Thank you for
yeah. So from every one of us at Nigerian Dynamics 365, we are saying stay with us and continue next week. So from us, it's a goodbye. We'll see you next week. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
bye.